Welcome to Stonewatch. This is my open spoiler discussion for Star Wars The Book of Boba Fett, Chapter 2, Tribes of Tatooine. And if you haven't already, please smash the subscribe button and click on that bell so you can notify future videos. And be sure to give this video a thumbs up. And yes, after watching this second chapter of The Book of Boba Fett, I gotta say, this one was pretty damn awesome. Now, we had a longer runtime this week than we did last week. Now, it was listed as 53 minutes. Now, after you minus out the recap and the credits, we're looking at 45 minutes worth of story time, which was a lot longer than last week, so I'll take what I can get, right? Now, Steph Green comes in to direct this chapter this week, and I'll be honest, I looked at her filmography, and it was only a couple things I actually recognized. I haven't seen any of it, to be quite honest with you, so I can't really judge in how this compares to what she's worked on prior to. But I did recognize she did do an episode for Watchmen, and she did one episode for Luke Cage, which I haven't watched any of that show, and she did a couple episodes for The Americans. I've only seen bits and pieces of that show, so I can't tell you if it was her episodes or not. So it is what it is. But she did a pretty damn good job this week, I have to say. Now, we pick up right where we left off last week. Fennec Shan comes back to Boba's palace, and she has her capture assassin in tow. Now, we find out that he is part of the organization that is called the Order of the Night Wind. Now, this guy sounded like he was kind of like a badass at first and stuff like that. I mean, as soon as they sat him down, they started asking him questions, and he shouts out some swear words and hutties and stuff and what have you. And then, like, the droid said he was not gonna, his people are like, they're like ruthless. They don't talk or nothing. They'll never break. They're like, they keep trying to ask him questions, stuff like that. And then Fennec says, okay, well, maybe he'll talk to the Rancor. And she hits the button on the throne and he falls down into the pit. Now, I thought this was pretty damn funny because as this thing's raising up, I'm like, oh my God, are we going to? And then as soon as like the things all open up wide, he goes, I'll talk. It was the mayor who hired me. It was the mayor. But there was nothing there. But I was kind of disappointed, to be quite honest with you, because one, I heard a Jabba had other creatures below the palace. So I thought we might see one of those. And then I thought for a split second, oh my God, will we actually see Muchi from the Bad Batch down here, right? I mean, because everybody was yelling at me when I was talking about the Bad Batch, like, it's not the same thing. It's not the same Rancor. Okay, fine. So what happened to Muchi? Where's all the animals? Now, it's been roughly about 5 years since the events of Return of the Jedi, so I don't know exactly what happened to all the creatures that were down there. But this guy actually, who was not going to talk, and he's not going to talk, but as soon as like that thing was open all the way up, nothing came out, but he like, I'll talk. I mean, so I thought that was funny, but I was a little disappointed that there actually wasn't anything there. But it was funny. And yes, after the guy who won't talks, we're off to see the mayor of Mos Espa, and I believe his name is Moke Shades. I think that's how they say it. I don't know. If not, I'm pretty sure we're going to see this guy again, especially the way he was talking to Boba. And I have to say, his receptionist that he had in front of his office, this bit got kind of old, like kind of fast, and I'm surprised that Boba like actually put up with that stuff. But then again, he's trying to be respectable, so I guess it is what it is. I mean, I didn't really care for that part too much. I mean, it was funny at first, but then after, like, okay, all right, it's not funny anymore. Let's move along. Now, granted, it was only maybe a minute or two, but tiny little nitpick as far as this episode goes. But anyway, this mayor guy, he's very, very interesting. I can't wait to get to know more about this guy. I mean, because he's talking to Boba like, hey, man, you're pretty much nothing. And when he points out, well, why'd you send this guy out after me if I'm not that big of a deal, you know? And then he just has his guys to shoot him and kill that guy dead, like right there and there. So I don't know whether or not that guy actually was hired by the mayor. Maybe. Right? I mean, because later on in this episode, I think there's a bunch of other people, group of people that might have hired that dude or those dudes, right? I mean, it may not necessarily be the mayor who actually hired these guys, right? Now, the mayor pretty much says that he wasn't the one who hired the assassins, and he said, you might want to go talk to Garza Flip over at the sanctuary. So when Boba goes over there, and as he's trying to get what's going on from her, we hear this drum and commotion going on outside. So when we step outside, sure enough, we see two big, huge huts being carried down the main road. Now, apparently, these two huts are cousins of Jabba the Hutt, which I don't remember hearing their names, so I'll have to get back to you on that one. And I looked online earlier on today, and I couldn't find anything about these two except for they're called the Hutt twins, and that's it. Now, they basically tell Boba that they're here to take over from what Jabba left off, and that's how it's going to go. And Boba says, that's not going to happen. You're going to have to kill me for it. So they're like, all right. Now, we get treated with something I didn't really expect. But I'll be honest with you, I never read these comic books, but when this Wookiee stepped forward, I'm going, oh my God, is that who I think it is? And sure enough, after doing some digging, after I watched the episode, it is. It's Black Chrysanthemum. Now, I'll have to be honest with you, I didn't read any of the comic books that he's actually in, but I do remember hearing about that. I do remember seeing his image. Now, he was in a couple of Darth Vader comic books. He was also in the Dr. Aphra comic book series. I don't know how many issues he was in. I just know he was in those books. And I'm like, when I saw him, and I did recognize him, I'm like, hey, is that who I think it is? And it was. I'm like, wow, that's pretty damn cool that they brought him in here. Now he's canon, right? So, I mean, for sure canon. I mean, because like Disney and Lucasfilm claimed that they were like, everything's going to be canon, the movies, the comics, the video games, and whatever. And they're really slipping as far as that stuff goes. But that's a topic for a whole nother video. Anyway, it was really cool to see this guy come in, so I can't wait to learn more about him, and I cannot wait to learn more about these Hutt twins. Now, after this whole thing goes down, we're back in the Bantha tank, and we're having another flashback. Now, this was pretty damn cool, because this is something I said last week I really wanted to see. Now, I don't know whether or not they've actually become like best friends and what have you, but we see that he's actually training with that warrior that kicked his butt with the Bantha stick or whatever. You know, they teaching him how to use the techniques and stuff like that. So I thought that was pretty damn cool. And then all of a sudden, then out of nowhere, we got this like hover train barreling down across the sand, and it's a train full of pikes. And then for whatever reason, they started taking pot shots at all the Tusken Raiders and their Banthas and stuff like that, and started taking them out and whatever you. So then Boba Fett promises to take them out for the Tusken Raiders. So they allow him to have a gun, and they gave him a Bantha stick. And he went and he stole all the swoop bikes from that swoop bike gang that we saw last week. Now, this was also pretty cool when he did this, too, because he went to Tosti Station, which we saw in a deleted scene for New Hope. And now, inside, we seen Fixer and Cammy. Now, I'll have to be quite honest with you. When I first saw these two, I didn't recognize who they were at all, because it's been a long time since I've seen those deleted scenes. I mean, I read the book, but I didn't really think anything about it, to be quite honest with you. And when I saw a breakdown video earlier on today and they said who they were, I'm like, oh, that's pretty damn cool that they brought them in. I don't know if we'll ever see them again. I thought it was pretty damn cool, right? Now, anyway, after he steals the bikes, he takes them back over to the camp with the Tusken Raiders. And he said, this is how we're going to take down the train. Now, I thought this was pretty damn funny, because at first they were going to start destroying all the stuff. It's like, whoa, these are mine. And he says, I'm going to train you guys how to use these. Now, I thought this was pretty damn funny with this whole training montage of them like trying to learn how to ride the bikes, and then they were learning how to jump from one bike to the other. I think that was to help practice jumping onto the train. Now, this was an awesome scene. I mean, a train heist scene, classic Western stuff, and that's like the one thing about these shows that Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni have been doing. They're not really just paying homage to Star Wars. They're paying homage to the things that inspired Star Wars. And I think that's why these shows work. That's just my opinion, though. And there's some people out there I know that do actually share that opinion. But anyway, this train heist scene was so damn awesome. And the way the Tusken Warrior person, we don't know if it's a female or a male just quite yet, hops on the train and just starts tossing people out. It was so damn funny. And they bring the train to a halt after the one droid is trying to shoot through. Now, I thought this was cool. We actually got to see Pikes in live action, right? Or except for in Solo. Now we get to see it live action in this series. I thought this was actually pretty cool. Now, I have a theory that these Pikes could be possibly, because he didn't kill them, he let some of them walk away. So these Pikes possibly could have been the ones who hired the assassins. I'm not saying I know anything or I've heard anything. I'm just throwing it out there. We got the Hutts, we had the mayor, we have the bar chick, and now the Pikes were possibly who could have hired those assassins. Now, after he takes out the hover train, we're in the tent and we're celebrating. Now, the chief hands him over this lizard thing that I could have sworn I saw it was in The Mandalorian. Now, the episode that I remember seeing this lizard thing in, I want to say it was The Child. It was the second episode in the first season. So, and that was a totally different planet. Again, but that was also the same planet that also had Jawas too. So I thought that was kind of weird. Now, I actually thought this was kind of gross when the lizard thing jumped out of the basket and went up his nose. And the next thing you know, he's tripping. And I'm like, this is kind of funny. And then he finds this tree somewhere and he ends up breaking off a branch and he comes back the next day. So he's got this big, huge piece of a tree, which where the hell did he find a tree in the middle of a desert, right? So how far did he walk? And it's almost like he was tripping on peyote or something. At least that was kind of I'm in the spirit world, from from Young Guns. You know what I mean? So, I mean, I thought this was pretty cool because then when he brings it all back, they turn that into his bantha stick that we see him use in The Mandalorian Season 2, which I thought that was pretty damn awesome. It's kind of like making your custom lightsaber kind of like type thing, right? At least that's the way it looked like in the process in this show. Now, I heard earlier on today that somebody said that they're hoping that we're done with the flashback scenes with the Tusken Raiders. Now, I gotta say, we're probably gonna get at least one more, and it's gonna probably end up being next week because now he's got his uniform that we see him in Mandalorian Season 2. Possibly like the next one we can see where he's standing there and he sees Din Djarin going across the sands and what have you. And then again, this is where he finds out where his armor's at, right? We see Cobb Vanth, right? So could that be possibly the next flashback that we get? Because it only makes a lot of sense because I don't really know how much time has passed since he's been out of the Sarlacc and now he's got his uniform that we see him in Mandalorian Season 2. I mean, they're not really saying, they're like saying, well, 5 months later. So I don't know how much time has actually passed. So I do believe we're going to probably get at least one more flashback with the Tusken Raiders. Then maybe see Din Djarin and off we go because it makes the most sense. I mean, I'm kind of hoping they don't spend too much time with the Tusken people too. I mean, it's been cool to see his comeback story, right? But I think we need to move on as far as that goes. And then I'm really hoping, and I just thought about this, just thought this out. I hope we don't see nothing happen to the Tusken kid. Or any of the Tusken kids for that matter. I mean, when I saw him carrying that one Tusken body after the first time the Pikes came through and they were taking him out, I thought that was that kid. I'm going, oh wait, no way. And it wasn't. Thankfully it was not. But then that kid came through like when they were actually taking out the train, he gave him the mirror and he was supposed to be signaling and stuff like that, So he had a job. He did it. So I wanted to have that kid. You know what I mean? Now, after he gets done forging his bantha stick and what have you, they're all hanging out by the fire. And then the next thing you know, they're like dancing around the fire. Now, somebody told me earlier on today that, hey, it's Dancing with Wolves, but with Star Wars. I'm like, yeah, kind of a little bit, right? And I didn't really look at it that way until you brought it up, Ken. So, I don't know, man. I did like this episode. I'm not going to say I like this one better than I did last week because I liked last week. I thought last week was just fine. I got to see what I wanted to see. I got to see how he got out of the Sarlacc pit, right? And I didn't mind the scenes with the Tusken Raiders and what have you. I liked it. I mean, when he fought that one creature, one thing, and the kid took the credit, I thought that was hilarious. I liked it. I mean, it didn't bother me a bit. So, did you see the second chapter of the Book of Boba Fett? Let me know in the comments down below. Which one do you like better, this one or last week? Myself, personally, I like them both. I don't know. I can't really pick one over the other. Now, next week is a whole nother story, right? And they seem to be wanting to have it to where we're like present day type stuff going on, and then we take the flashbacks to see like the stuff that be leading up to this moment. So I'm kind of hoping next week is just roughly around the same length of episode, because if you're going to do that, if you're going to do half and half like they did this week, they almost kind of have to, right? I can't wait to see what they do next. I don't know, man. I'm loving this show. Let me know what you think in the comments down below.